This time on Low Boost, we keep plugging along on our 1966 Ford Mustang disc brake upgrade. So, if you guys aren't familiar with 1964 to 66 Mustangs, and even maybe some of the later ones, the 6-cylinder varieties had some weaker parts, weaker spindles, not as good brakes, and among other things like the rear end, the transmission. So a lot of those things we are going to have to upgrade on this. Now, it would have been easier to get a V8 Mustang and just take it from there, but we got such a good deal on this thing and it's in pretty decent shape, so we're just going to send it and upgrade with all the parts. So if you guys are in the same situation, you might be able to do the same thing too. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button to follow along. I already have one episode up on the brake upgrade to the front end of this Mustang. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you can go on and check that out. If you already have seen that, stay tuned because now I'm going to continue on this great project. Start off by attaching the bracket caliper, the caliper bracket to the spindle first, which is this black thing. Bolt back here and a bolt there. Next, there's a foam insulator that goes over that, and then we put the dust shield and the cap on it. So after mounting the caliper bracket on, got to use the thread locker into the torque specs that are provided in the instructions. Foam gasket, dust shield, and the cap plate here. This is going to encapsulate the bearing and then keep everything in there like that. This has a little lip, I don't know if you can see it there, and that lip faces the front of the car. And this has a really good air duct to help cool the brakes too. So far it looks a hell of a lot better than it did. So methodically working our way through. This bolt back here, red Loctite and 90 to 120 foot-pounds. This one, red Loctite, 50 to 75 foot-pounds. These three here, blue Loctite and 9 to 12 foot-pounds. Basically just a little bit harder than hand tight. All right, so next up, we got to take our rotor, which is also where the bearings go, and we have to pack the bearings with grease. Now, there's no way to do this without making a giant mess, but I'm actually going to put some grease and the bearing in a bag and kind of knead it through to really get the bearing packed nice. Let's try that. All right, so the bearings are not packed or anything. I just wanted to show you what it looked like dry fit. This fits over on the back, and then this one there too, and then I have the cap that goes on it as well. But this is so kind of we'll show you here as the rotor spins. This spins over all the metal, but you got to pack these with grease. So let's do that now. So I got this big old dollop of grease. Just gonna put it all in the bag. I'm gonna reuse the bag with the other bearings, but we can have it all in there like this. Potentially not get as messy. It's gonna be messy. There's no way around it, but at least it's not as bad. Get the bearing in there and just kind of freaking knead it. Knead it. If you can see what I'm doing. Next, we grease up the inside of the hub. And then that's gonna get dropped in next. We're gonna put the bearing inside after everything's packed. Make sure it's in there. And then there's a grease seal here that we put in, and we just gotta tap it in. Just tap it in, happy. All right, so now that that is greased up and the hub is greased up, we're gonna put the rotor right onto the spindle. Try not to scrape anything. You should be able to feel the seal just kind of slip right over the surface onto the spindle. See there? We'll slide it out. Boom. That is on. Give it a little turn. Then we got to put on the front part, but that's it. Then we'll put a smaller one on. Nice and Packed. Packed all that grease. To wipe that down. All right, next, this little cap. It's the bearing retainer that just kind of holds it in place. And then we put a nut on that. This actually gets hand tightened first. So, after the pin's on, there's a washer underneath. That gets torqued at 25 foot-pounds. Then you spin this for a little bit, turn it back half, then retighten it back down to 15 foot-pounds, put the cap over it, and then the cotter pin on to finish this side out. Then we move on to the actual brake caliper. The actual inner brake pad actually on the bracket first with the anti-rattle clip facing down. Then put the front, this here. Then the front pad on and then skip it over, applying some grease here and here to allow it the lubrication so the caliper can actually move freely left and right. And that's how it should look. Next, I slide this over with some caliper grease so it lines up with that hole there. I had to use a mallet to get it in. Then we just take the included bolt here. Already has thread locker on it. It says 12 to 16 foot-pounds. I kind of can do that with my magical wrist. I don't have a torque wrench with a torque thing for that, so I can figure it out. Ready? Try it again. See? There's torque wrench. This kit also has got really nice brake lines. They're not braided, but they're coated like a plastic. This gets threaded in and then gonna go up top. Next, we're gonna take off the brake line. Bracket. They gave us a nice new one that's gonna be designed for this brake kit. Take it off. There we go. Driver's side's done. They recommended to tap these tabs with a hammer so the pad won't move around a lot. I'm gonna drive it to see if I get a lot of brake chatter, and then I'll clamp these down a little bit more. So one thing I want to point out, I ended up having to put the old bracket back on because the new one was smaller and didn't fit, and the new hard line that I got, which is the exact same size as the old one, wouldn't go down further without bending. So if I put the old bracket back on, the brake lines and everything lined up perfectly. So if you have the new brackets, I would tell you not to use them, use that one. That about wraps it up for this episode. In the next one, we're gonna bleed our master cylinder, hook all that up, connect our brake pedal, connect all our lines, bleed everything and check it out to make sure everything works to finish up that. Then, if you guys aren't already subscribed, consider subscribing. I have a 351 Windsor that's going to go into this thing, and we're going to document everything we do through the process throughout this entire project over the winter. So, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.